Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Stanley number F248 4-inch US 4 swing clear hinge. If you are relatively new to the world of hinges, this one might have you wondering, what in the hay is it? Well, what it is it's an otherwise normal hinge. Imagine if I've got this all covered up. Okay? Imagine if I put the barrel right at the pinky, right at the tip of my index finger that I'm moving. It would be a normal hinge. This, however, because of how we move the vertical axis of pivoting, what would normally be here, over here, it permits a condition called swing clear, which means when you open the door to its 90-degree position, the door is literally rotated or articulated out of the door opening. In your mind's eye, imagine if you were to take a standard door and the door is in the closed position and you measured the distance between the stops to achieve or to measure what your clear opening is. You would find that when the door is in the closed position, you can imagine your clear opening, if the door wasn't hanging in the frame, would be the distance between the stops. If you were to take that same door and open it to 90 degree and then measure, it's now the distance between the stops, but the door encroaches into the space. So now your clear opening is reduced by that amount of encroachment. When we take the vertical axis of pivoting on the hinge and move it out over here, what happens now is that when the door gets to the 90-degree opening, it's now basically out of the opening. If it was a standard hinge, and this is the door, this is what the door would look like in the 90-degree position. If it was a standard hinge, you know what, let me grab a standard hinge. Okay, I've grabbed a relatively standard hinge. A standard hinge meaning a full mortise standard hinge. That's the one you're used to seeing. Doors in the closed position. Door's in the closed position. When I open the door, the heel edge of the door is coming this way. When I open it to 90 degree, my door is going to be really occupying this space in here. So right now in the door closed position, the rabbit's probably going to be right about here. But when that door is getting out to the open position, now my clear opening is outrageously reduced. When I do that same sort of experiment with you, when I get my door is going to be occupying in this space and my stop will be out here. But when I open this up, and we hold those two hinges in basically the same orientation, you can see where one hinge is going to encroach into the space much more than, or one door will permit the encroachment much more into the space than the swing clear hinge. A swing clear hinge literally will come in different types. Full mortise, half surface. To illustrate this a little bit better, let me make up a couple of drawings. Okay, bear with me, almost there. A full mortise hinge is the hinge that we're looking at, and that really means that the leaf of the door portion and the frame portion will be mortised flush to the edge of the door. Okay. A half surface hinge is when the door portion is surface mounted to the face of the door. I literally have to start that drawing over. Sorry. It'll be worth the wait. Hopefully. A half mortise hinge is when the door portion is mortised to the door. So a full mortise, both leaves are mortised to the door and frame. Half surface, Surface mounted to the door, mortise to the frame. Half mortise, mortise to the door, surface mounted to the frame. You can literally do swing clear hinges in all of those variants. Oh, and full surface as well. That's for sure. I'm going to pause this video. Okay, so these drawings are grossly out of scale, but nonetheless, they're going to work. That's your full mortise standard hinge. You can see the distance where the door encroaches into the space. But when you use a swing clear hinge, you can see how, because we kick that vertical axis of pivoting from basically in line with the rabbet, and we kick it all the way out here versus here, how it will then position that door so that it's going to give you a greater clear opening. Doesn't really pull the door out of the opening 100%, but pulls it out outrageously enough. The point of a swing clear hinge is when you either have to or want to provide a maximum amount of clear opening. Have to is when you have a ADA code compliant requirement to provide a clear opening not to be less than 32-inch clear opening. If you have a standard 3-foot door, you're going to be in good shape. You'll have a handicap compliant clear opening achieved with a standard hinge and a 3-foot door. That's going to work. However, you might have a 2-foot 10 door, and you'll need to get that swing clear hinge installed on a 34-inch door because the distance between the stops is likely to be 32 3/4. Well, you kick most of that door into the opening and you'll fall below the federal required ADA minimum of 32-inch. That's when you have to. Another instance of when you have to, but not maybe by code, is a pair of doors in a hospital. Okay? Let's imagine, and that's where I see swing clears a lot. Those doors are open and or pocket hinges as well. Different animal, but swing clear door, pair of doors in a hallway, a corridor, where carts, wheelchairs are moved through. As you are coming down, maybe leading to the emergency room, and people are moving quick, those doors are sticking into the openings where a cart can hit it and get hung up on it. You're going to use swing clears to move those doors out of that opening so that you have a flush condition as to the one that I'm trying to draw here. A flush condition. Okay? That's the point of that. I'm not aware of any code that mandates that for a hospital, but you're going to see swing clear all the time in that application. Another instance where I sell these, and this hinge in particular, is in a residential application. The client is handicapped, is in a wheelchair, and really wants to be able to move about the house better. And swing clear hinges are very often sold to disabled folks in residential applications. I also have one client in Chicago who sells his clients on swing clear hinges. They're not disabled at all, but they do take a 2'6" door and make the opening more usable because they get that door thickness kicked out of the opening. And his clients love it, is the bottom line. So lots of reasons to use swing clear hinges. Reasons not to use swing clear hinges is that they're really not load bearing. Be mindful if you're trying to hang an outrageously heavy door that a swing clear hinge, you're going to want to check with the manufacturer and see if you can get some sort of a detail on a weight rating. They're generally not weight rated at all, load rated. Another reason which may complicate things is, of course, when you change the physics, or the mechanics, I should say, of a door opening, you complicate the hardware. For instance, if you had an electric power transfer on a door, you're going to need to be sure that you've ordered one that's compliant with a swing clear hinge because of how the distance between frame and door for a swing clear hinge versus a regular hinge is a certain amount, but now you have a swing clear sort of application, and that's going to be a much greater distance for the flexible cable to get to the unit. Obviously, templating hardware is going to change because the vertical axis of pivoting is moved out. So where you locate a door closer from the vertical axis of pivoting or an overhead stop. All of that stuff needs to be taken into account. There are certainly instances when a swing clear hinge will violate the requirement of a door closer. I can't think of the one that came to mind in my career. The point is, be mindful if you're ordering swing clear and you have other hardware happening on the opening, that you're not going to have any trouble. A swing clear hinge does not affect the need to pre-fit a door at all. A wide throw hinge doesn't affect that at all. But anyway, be mindful of that. So this is the F248. It's a bit of an unusual hinge in the fact that this is a greater than 90-degree return here. And I think the logic on that is a swing clear hinge used in a commercial setting can literally be a hinge with a 90-degree opening. Okay? Because this distance is enough for a hollow metal frame. Well, imagine if all of a sudden I had some ranch casing applied, okay, to my wooden frame in my residential application. You're going to want to have a relief on that bend so the hinge can be installed without you having to notch the face of your casing. There's a link below this video to a document called Template that will allow us to review the dimensional properties of this hinge when it is in. And the drawing that's there is, I should have just pointed you in that direction. It's a very good drawing. It does illustrate why we're talking about getting that out and around a piece of ranch casing that's been installed. So be mindful of that. The location of all the holes for the screws, and by the way, screws are included in a complimentary finish. You're going to get all wood and all machine screws, so that's handy. That's not typical though. You generally get, for hinges, generally get all machine and half wood screws. So when you're ordering it, absolutely feel free to indicate what you want in terms of screws. If you have wood door and wood frame, indicate all wood screws. They may send you machine screws, but at the very minimum, they're obligated to send you enough wood screws to do the job. Now, the location of those holes is what we would call the template pattern. It is the standardized pattern for a 4-inch hinge. Not all 4-inch hinges are going to have the same pattern. There's actually lots. But this would be considered the template pattern. Some people call it a half moon pattern, but it's what we would call the template pattern. It's a standardized location. If you're unsure if it's compatible and you're doing a replacement of existing, print that template out, walk to your opening with your tape measure and confirm. It's not a deal breaker if your hinge locations for screws are in a different location and you really want swing clear. It's really not a problem. Drill those holes a little bit bigger, dowel them, mortise them, re-drill your holes for your screws, and just be on your way. It's not a big job. I've done it. It's really not a big deal. Use a hardwood species of lumber when you're using dowels. Glue those in. Maybe cut them or tap them down flush so that you can just take a chisel and clean them off so your hinge will sit flush. The thickness of this leaf is 127 thousandths according to the manufacturer's data. According to my caliper, it's 128 thousandths, so right on. Now, the F248 is a hinge that is made of steel. Okay? The 4 in the part number, the first 4, means 4-inch. When you have hinges, there's always 2 dimensions when you're dealing with standard hinges, the height and then the width. When you're dealing with a swing clear or a half surface hinge or a half mortise hinge or a full surface hinge for that matter, you're dealing with just the height dimension. So be mindful that, you know, you wouldn't call it 4.5, 4.5 if it's a swing clear hinge. We would just call it 4-inch for the height, because the height is the first dimension on a hinge. The second 4 in the part number means satin brass. That means 3 things. It means US 4, which means 3 things. Made of steel, satin brass finish with a lacquer applied. And being Stanley, my favorite hinge manufacturer, and I wish I did more of their product, I love their fit and finish. And in particular, where they beat other manufacturers is their ability to get down in the crotch of the hinge a finish. I've seen other manufacturers who don't even make an attempt to get that finished in there, and Stanley always looks so nice. And you know, it's just a hinge, but in my opinion, the quality of the fit and finish is what separates them from other people. You might be buying it because it's spec'd or because you know the name. Well, what stands behind the name is an incredibly high quality product, in my experience. There's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Stanley products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website and several product catalogs. And I'm going to click on the primary product catalog. And if you did the same and did a search for F248, you're going to get to the page where you'll find that standard weight, plain bearing, swing clear, full mortise hinge. What's important about that is you're going to be in the area where you can see other swing clear hinges, because they do make more than just the one we're looking at. And in particular, the page right after it shows your half surface, your half mortise, your full surface. Very interesting to see those 4 variants on a swing clear hinge. Full mortise, half mortise, full surface. And that full surface, that's a neat hinge. I've seen that on grocery cart return half doors at grocery stores where they really need to swing that big door. It's a half door, but they need to swing it out and out of the way. I've also seen it on that same grocery store on a pair of 4080 doors. They're primary loading man doors. Get those big doors moved out and out of the way. I don't see, again, a load rating here for that material. And I think technically they'd tell you that they're not load rated. If you have a large door, larger than 3 foot, go with a heavyweight hinge. Or go with a 5-inch hinge, or a 5-inch and a heavyweight, a taller hinge. Always try to go with a taller hinge if ever in doubt. And feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to contact the factory. You can also do this F248 as a concealed bearing, a CB248, which will still be steel. You can do it in an an STS CB248. Will be a stainless steel based material. Okay, and then there's lots of varieties of the material that you can do as you look on that chart. I would strongly suggest that if you have an occasional need for hinges, that you make Stanley a strong consideration. I am a very big fan of the quality of their fit and finish. In my opinion, they stand alone when it comes to that. If you have any questions on the Stanley F248 half surface hinge, and it's available in other finishes, it's steel, so they can do anything. Your brasses, your bronze, your chromes, your oil rubbed. They can do any of those finishes, certainly, easily. It's Stanley. They can do all that stuff. And finally, before I sign off, that catalog is very helpful because if you were to scroll to the beginning section of the product catalog, you will be able to review an overview of hinges, how they work, the different types, what to look for, how to call them out, a formula to determine wide throw hinges. And it's nice to possess a working knowledge of the hinge if you bump into it. You know, if you make a living in the door industry, I would certainly think you'd want to, you know, commit that information to memory. Any questions on the F248 Swing Clear Hinge by Stanley or any other Stanley product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.